portion, it's going to be about how to form a strategic alliance. Take a list, do's and don'ts. So I will kind of run through how we're going to do the setup of this 2-hour session, and then we'll get started. So I'm Sarah Tinka. I'm lead strategy mentor for Shockwave, and I think this is my 9th or 10th year first. And so many years I've lost count.
I'm Sean Burrell. I'm a senior on the team. I'm a co-captain, lead mechanical, and lead strategy.
All right, and then so we're going to do a brief kind of teaching section about how to get your team to the point where you can make a pick list to pick the best alliance for your team at competition. And then once we're done with that, we'll open it up for Q&A, and I'll have a few more panel members join us, including a few Shockwave members and a few awesome members from 2471 that have offered to join us. Please send your questions for the Q&A section. We will do our best to dive into them. So write them down, or if you remember, we're happy to go back in slides and readdress something we cover. Alrighty, so we'll kind of do this chronologically, like from the start of early season all the way to your first event. Alrighty, so early season and kickoff. We're gonna get the game challenge. You're gonna design your robot, hopefully strategically, to play the game. You're gonna analyze the game correctly. And I'll let Sean go into a little bit more detail about that.
So the biggest thing when kickoff starts is really identifying what's most advantageous to go towards for your team. Once you get the challenge based on your team's resources, based on what your team wants to accomplish that year, you need to kind of identify what kind of strategy you're going to go down, what kind of robot you want to design. So it breaks into a couple different parts from the start of kickoff into strategy and design and strategy and analysis. The strategy and design, you're kind of breaking it down to what kind of role your robot wants to fill, what your robot wants to do. You're identifying really where you're going to go. For strategy and analysis, you're identifying the optimization of your kind of how your strategy evolves and changes throughout the season, and what can you do to improve on the robot you've already built.
Yeah. And obviously, these are huge topics of discussion that we could spend the whole 2 hours on, but that's not the point of this panel today. So if you're interested in more detail and doing a deeper dive into these topics, Bryce's presentation, I think he did this last year at First Fair, is a great starting point. There's also awesome stuff on Chief Delphi you can use to research this. But if there's a lot of interest in this topic, we have time within the Q&A section, and you guys want us to go back, we can. Bryce is here, and he has his slides with him, and we can go through kind of his stuff as well. All right, we're at the start of competition season. You've had your strategy, you've analyzed the game, and hopefully you've built a robot to play the game correctly. So I'll kind of go over this. So there will always be more data to scout, but you need to focus the data that you should scout that works for your team and your team's resources. Are you going to personally track every specific thing, like how many cubes a team places? You know, how much time are they spending on the scale, just as an example from a previous year? Or are you going to be a little more broad because you might have less resources, like using OPR or the Blue Alliance or a strategy alliance group to get your data from. And I'll have Sean briefly explain the OPR, DPR, CCWM, those are.
So OPR is offensive power rating, DPR is defensive power rating, CCW is code contribution. So all of these statistics are made by the Blue Alliance through some match algorithms. Essentially, OPR calculates based on your alliance's score about how much did you contribute to that match, puts it in like a hard number. DPR kind of contributes how you affect the opponent's score, so the opposite alliance, how it affects and changes that score. And CCWM is your OPR minus your DPR, so kind of how much you contribute towards winning and changing the opposing score, so how much you contribute towards winning. These are focused on alliance numbers, so although they might not be as good as watching a specific robot and seeing exactly what it does, it gives you the general gist of what a robot could do based on its score. It's good for some years and not for others, because if you have massive shifts in scores, OPR are going to throw way off because the points of one alliance do not reflect what the robot is.
Remember, it's a collection of the alliance's score. They're using an algorithm to pull out like a general number to represent that team's offensive power rating for that team. So it's not specifically what that team did, it's what that alliance did, and they're using an algorithm to pull that data. So caution when using this, and oftentimes using it towards later matches, the more matches that have been played, the better the pool of data that they're pulling all this stuff from the algorithm, the more accurate those things are going to be. So teams with limited resources, a little bit of caution, make sure you really understand what these things are tracking if you're going to use these scout robots. Other thing that's really important, besides just basic metrics like how many cubes someone places, is establishing robot roles. And we've got a great selection of robots here, including Mean Machine. We like to call this type of robot a jack of all trades or a jack of all bots. They can do the scale, the switch, the vault, and climb. And then we also have down here a switch bot, which destroyed the switch and really did a great job taking away the points from the other side because he had to manage both defending the scale and the switch. So knowing what robots will be at a competition, establishing all the roles that are possible and scouting them is really important too. And then finally, creating a data collection effort, which we'll go into more detail a little later in slides, get deep down into it. But basically, you can start with paper scouting, which is how our team started out. Sorry, John just still filming it all down. You can develop your own app. You can use spreadsheets and just like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google document to track team scores, strategy alliances that are available, and there's even apps that you can get off the cheap. All right, you're at your first event. Okay. All right. Most important thing is come prepared. Pass inspection and know the rules. Teams notice when you don't pass inspection. So just keep this in the back of your head. You're always being scouted, and you should always be scouted as well. So keep track of teams that are struggling to pass inspection because you don't want to end up picking them on your alliance and then constantly have issues with their bumpers falling off, let's say, in playoffs or something like that. So things to keep aware of. Also understanding the rules. You go to a first match with your alliance and they start racking up foul points, or they don't necessarily know all the specific rules of the games or how to score the points. These are really important things, so come prepared. Make sure your team is ready to pass inspection, knows the gameplay, knows the rules, and they understand there's team-specific goals for the event, right? Like, not everyone's going to try and go there to wreck, right? Win everything. Some teams just really want the experience, they want to shine. Their goal is not necessarily to be the big powerhouse and rank high. So keep that in mind too, with what and cater to what you're possibly going to be scouting. And then have a plan for scouting. So that could be a single person, it could be a student, a mentor, a parent even. We've had parents help with our scouting before. It just depends on your resources, or you could be like Citrus Circuits and have like a 20-member strategy-focused team that just is at to do that. So there's a big spectrum, but have a plan in place for scouting when you get to competition. It's faster than I am. Okay, so we're going to go into deep dive of some of the different methods. I'm going to cover the simple ones, and then Sean's going to go into the details of more advanced ones because he's really integrated to those things on our team. So, like I said, paper scouting, a little example is when Chocolate was first starting out, we didn't have a lot of students on the team. I think we had maybe 50, something like that. So most of that was dedicated to drive team and pick crew, which left a few students that we could put in the stands to actually record data on the teams playing matches. And we had a little accordion file with all the team numbers, and you have a piece of paper where you write down match notes and stuff like that, and you file it in the accordion. And when time came to play with them, we pull them out and hand them to the drive team and be like, this is who you're playing with, this is what we scouted. So super simple. And then it slowly evolved. This again took many years. We started using an Excel spreadsheet. So we basically digitized all our paper notes by team. And then we had some really great kids and a mentor dedicated to writing a script to pull the data from the Excel spreadsheet so that we could actually compare metrics in a much faster way and utilize that data. So these are kind of some of the step-by-step ways you build up your strategy team, all the way up to what Tom's going to talk about next.
So from Excel, we wanted to kind of get a different data collection where we control the different outputs, the different regions where we dump data and where we receive data. So we created our map, and least for our purposes, so that customize and create a unique data system. There are other apps that have been published, such as just like the Green Alliance or Robot Scouter. These are all ones we've got small lists from Chief Delphi that you can see. The teams have established and created a work that you can download for free and use for free in competitions. Other than that, sometimes veteran teams don't actually equate to having a lot of members. So scouting alliances are hard. These are alliances where teams reach out to other teams and say, hey, we're short members, you're short members, let's collaborate and work together so that we can scout the whole field and share the data collectively. It raises both teams up and being able to scout more areas while being able to do it with lower, populous teams. The final example is the Blue Alliance. The Blue Alliance is up to date more or less after every 4 matches previous with scores for each match, a breakdown for each match, the OPR, DPR, and CCW on the teams, and it's a really great resource if you might be lacking behind the strategy project application and still want to stay up to date with matches.
Alrighty, what to do if you have limited resources, whether that be, sorry, I'm gonna sit, I'm 8 months pregnant, so I'm gonna eat pregnant. Otherwise, I'll be scared. So what are you gonna do if your team has limited resources? So that might be, limited number of students available to you, or, you just have a smaller budget, you can't travel with as many people, you don't have as much resources. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty and then we'll I'll do a broad read through this and we'll go into more detail. So strategies is more than watching matches. You need to know the rules, which we touched on before. Pre-scouting is really important, and I'll let Sean go into detail on that. You also need to verify the data that you're scouting, and then most importantly, talking to other teams, not just your alliance partners, but your opponents at the event. Don't be afraid to talk to them. They're your fastest and quickest way to get information about that team and their robot. So I'll let you deep dive into some of them.
All right, really quick, I'm going to preface this by saying, if you're a team with limited resources, it's not an excuse not to scout. There are many different ways you can scout with limited resources, from 1 person to up to 5. So, at a basic level, with 1 person, you could keep up with the Blue Alliance, reach out to strategy alliances. This could be 1 student, 1 mentor, even 1 parent. Just keeping up to date on the different things that happen on the Blue Alliance, the updated match schedules, and reaching out to different strategy alliances, saying, hey, I'm a team with limited resources, I can't scout. I don't have enough people to perform scouting for the Sims, reaching out and being able to get that verification. At a secondary level, you have about 2 to 3 people. This is talking to people during, speaking to your alliance partners, speaking to your opponents, trying to get around to most of the people at the event and ask them, what is the robot about? Different questions about what does your robot do? What do you do for autonomous? What do you do for teleo? What's your most important feature of your robot? What do you like to do during it? The amount of data you can get from a team, and all teams want to talk about their robot. The amount of data you can get from 1 team is limitless, and just asking them there is huge in terms of strategy. On top of that, you can look at the Blue Alliance, you can verify specific key important matches of teams you talk to when you ask, hey, is there something wrong with the mechanism? Did it not work this match? And they say, we have a key match coming up. Verify that with 2 to 3 people the next coming matches can be very important. With 3 to 5 people, you can get into some things like pre-step. So watching a team at the events prior, although this may seem weird and kind of odd, watching a team and how they perform at the event prior actually shows you kind of what that team is capable of. Being able to recount on what a team has been able to do before, and going up to the team and saying, hey, what have you changed? How have you changed? And being able to verify what they can do with what you've seen at previous events is huge. It's like being there and talking to the team, but you don't have to drive all the way to their event and be there at the specific time to realize.
And we're going to show you the pre-scouting slide about how our team does pre-scouting too, so we'll explain that a little bit more in detail as well. But yeah, I definitely want to emphasize again, do not be afraid to talk to teams. Like Sean said, everyone is talking about their robot. It's completely underused resource. Being a mentor on a team and being part of strategy for those folks that have so many teams are just unwilling to go and talk to people, just get to know teams and kind of figure out what the robot's about. All right. Advanced strategy. So the main difference between a team that's got an advanced strategy group or scouting group and a team that might have more limited resources is basically the amount of manpower you have to kind of throw behind it. And, you know, effort too. That's always a hard part too, is getting the kids interested in it. But it's limitless. Your options if you have a large team with resources and kids interested in strategy and scouting. So mostly it's just manpower, but there's little things you can do to be effective if you have limited resources, all the way up to what Sean's going to go.
So with advanced strategy, the biggest difference now that you have that manpower is being able to verify your data. You've now been able to talk to these teams with pre-scouting done at a limited resource team, where you've been able to pre-scout. You've done all you can with watching these teams before their events, talking to these teams at the event, and trying to verify their data during the event. But the biggest thing comes from having a dedicated team to watch the robots during the event. When you get to advanced strategy, you can have up-to-date verification of most of their matches. You can be able to watch these teams and verify exactly what they say if they have, per se, a new mechanism and you don't have time to go watch it. This is a team with about 9 people. If you have 6 people in the stands, one watching each one on the match. The verification level, the amount of data you gave in this is absolutely massive. You've now verified everything the team says, every single word that they say. Now there's more weight to it. Everything you know about that team has more weight to it. You can actually make real decisions off of this thing.
Alrighty. So you've got your stand scouters, like 6 people in the stands. You scout your robot. You've got your fit strategy. We'll kind of talk about this. Basically, those are the people that take the stands data and then deliver it to your driver in your space. So you guys can perform great in your match, build a strategy with that alliance, and perform the best game possible. Now, how do you communicate between these large groups? That is one of the biggest hurdles for teams that can do this advanced level of strategy, is just the communication between these large groups. We've got so many students to manage, so how do you do it? So there's a couple different ways. I'll kind of delve into how our team does it. So we've got our stand scouters, which is usually 6 kids in the stands. We try to rotate them so they don't burn out. I recommend doing that if you can. But we assign usually a lead student, and then there's a mentor or parent sometimes when we have limited resources like traveling, that would be with them, that can then communicate that data down to the students that are actively in the pits, interviewing your opponents and your alliance members for the upcoming match. They then filter that data down and deliver it straight to the drive team where they can then use it effectively to play the match. So that's kind of a broad way to do it. We use a Google Hangouts chat often to ping like people in the stands will be like, oh no, robot AB broke, go, and so then the pit strategy would go in and they would have that match. And then we can then change the strategy for the next game being played with them accordingly. Okay, I'll let Sean.
So this is our version of freestyle. I know it's hard to see, but the main parts of this that we have are we have data collection methods on top. We've established what we want. We have different bins for like autonomous and teleop. We have different things for like how many panels did this team take? How much cargo did they score in a given match? What's their average? How many pieces do they average move per match? We added color verification for these. So you can just generally see what a team's capable of in a certain area just by taking a glance. On top of that, the most important section, in my opinion, is the notes section. We like to write
Like paragraphs.
Yes. We like to write detailed notes on each and every one of the teams. When you get into a sense where you can think about a team and kind of identify what role the robot goes into and what the robot kind of looks like, just through the notes section, you've been able to interview that team before you've gone to that team. You've been able to know more about that team and ask specific questions relating to that team before even going to competition with that team. It's a huge resource. It doesn't even have to be this complicated. Specific data metrics like what can they do in auto and then writing a little bit about it. What can they do in teleop and then writing a little bit about it. Huge when you can reference back to the college.
I would say a lot of teams actually are going to do this without realizing it. You might have 1 or 2 kids on your team that are really into strategy and follow those big name teams, and they're like, what did 254 Citrus Circuits do? And they watch their matches and they follow them and they have an idea what that robot can do. Like, you're already essentially just pre-scouted that team. You come with an opinion and an idea in mind of what that team's capable of. We're just putting pen to paper basically here and doing it for all the teams that are going to be at our event. So especially if you've got a student that's really interested in it, it's usually me, Sean, and then the other high level strategy students that really like sitting there and just watching matches. Sounds like boring, but we really enjoy it. So it's kind of a way to put it. Okay, next one. So what I mentioned before is we usually have students in the stands, and I'm not going to go into super detail about what our team does. If you guys have questions about specifically what our team does, I'm happy to go into detail either after the panel or if you've got Q&A questions specific to our team. But these are just kind of general things so you guys like. So this is an image from our stand scouting app that the students developed. We have just an app strategy programming team on Shockwave, and they developed this app for the kids in the stands to utilize. This is their user interface, basically. So this is last year's game. You've got your cargo ship and your 2 rockets. You've got your platforms, starting positions. You've got your cargo, and then your food and loading stations. So they can basically, either drag their finger across the screen to draw an auto path for a robot. You can click on these to say, oh, they scored cargo or a panel. So it's basically just a way for them to quickly enter data. This is by far the most advanced app we've ever done. I'd say every year it gets better and better, but it did not start out this way years back. Our apps were pretty simple. It was just like team name and then like what did they do? It was like you just clicked a plus button next to the whatever metric you were doing. So it definitely doesn't need to be this complicated, but we just kind of want to give you an idea of like this is how far you can go. There's lots of tutorials on Delphi to get to this point. And then also, our team's a great resource if you have questions. Our lead app student, Saul, is more than happy to talk to you for hours about app development. All right.
From the data that we gather from that, this is the strategy app that we have kind of in the pits. It's the culmination of all the data we gather in the stands. We have it on hand in the pits. The number one thing data does to show to other teams, to show them that, number one, you've been watching, you've been listening, you know what you're talking about. And number two, to actually put metrics and values behind what you're saying. Why do you want to run this strategy? Why do you think you can do this much? Because we have the data to back it up and show that we can do this. So what we have here is a compilation of all the data that we gathered from that. And this is just how we compiled it in segmented bar chart on the left, and then we have optimistic plots on the right.
And I will also preface, all this data is fake. We do testing of our app, and so we'll put random data in here. So this is all random data. Because you can see a few teams, you might recognize like 15 tens up here. It's just team numbers we plug in, and then this is just random data, so we have to figure out. Alrighty, so now we come through kind of the how to scout and all the different ways you can possibly do it. So now we're getting to the main point of this, alliance selection. Where to start? Basically, the first and most important thing to know is what are you capable of doing? What is your robot physically capable of doing? What roles do you like to play as far as scoring? If you are capable of playing defense, that's great. Make sure you know that. Be prepared to talk about your robot to other teams and show best and worst case examples of your robot, right? Because they're going to come up to you and be like, wow, you destroyed the switch. Can you do anything else? And you might be like, no, I can't, but here's my best match. This was my highest score. This was my average. Or they might say, hey, you broke. What happened? Your average went way down. And you need to be able to explain that. So know what you're capable of and be prepared to talk about it.
On top of knowing what you're capable of, one of the most important things is knowing what you're comfortable with. Although you may be capable of doing something, if you're not comfortable doing that, don't advertise them and make sure you let teams know that you're not comfortable doing it. We've had situations in the past where teams have said, I'm capable of doing everything, but if we were to pick them, they say, I'm not comfortable doing defense, which is fine. Not everybody is comfortable doing defense. But advertising that you're not comfortable doing defense lets teams know early that we're not going to play defense if you're big, that it doesn't cause confusion on the field, it doesn't create a giant mess of things when you do it.
Don't lie, it will come back to bite you. You will not have a fun time if you don't get along with your alliance partners going to the playoffs. We've all been there. It's not fun. And then most importantly, it's more than just rankings. Oftentimes, depending on how the game is played or how things are scored, like rank points, it can definitely skew specific robots higher or lower. Whereas when you go into playoffs, there might be different rules, and those points that you earn to get that higher ranking don't matter anymore. So it's really important you understand how the game is played, and then remember, rankings are not everything. Use your scouting data that you've collected, and all the stuff we just talked about up to this point. Rely on that more than just rankings, always to verify the drafts. And Sean's got a great anecdote about this.
So one example of this happening is last year at District Champs, our second pick for the game was Chaos Stick. They were like 61st, but our data showed that they were one of the best defense spots there. Although a team might not be able to show their full capabilities through each and every match they played due to circumstances of a bad match schedule, mishaps with the alliance partners, lack of organized communication, strategizing and looking at each team individually and seeing what they're capable of doing on your own changes the rankings in a way where you're not relying on the bad match schedules, you're not relying on the mishaps. And you're seeing the team for what it's worth if it's on your own.
Yeah, and that's where pre-scouting really came into play. If a lot of teams had pre-scouted Chaos Theory, they would have known how good they were at defense by watching the event they played with us at Lake Oswego, where we competed to finals. We won that one, and then we used the District Champs to make it all the way to finals. So it really is a great resource, especially if you have a limited, number of things that we possibly scout at it specifically. Alrighty, okay, so now you kind of know what to expect for alliance selection, what you do. So what do you do if you're ranked low? It's not the end of the world. If you are, I would say, if you're outside the top 8 to 10, those top 8 tend to pick each other, so things might be rough, right? But it's not the end of the world, especially at a district event, because you have to remember how few robots are at each event. You're most likely going to get picked. There's very few that leave a district event that they get selected in the lines, just by the sheer number of teams. So let's see here. Sorry, let me just catch up where I am. Oh, Sean, do you want to talk about your little anecdote? Yeah.
So when you talk to teams, please try and be positive about it. It doesn't matter what's happened to your robot. If something broke, you're having a bad day. If you thought you were going to rank higher, but you didn't rank higher, the difference going up to a team when you walk up to a team and say, "Hi, this is our robot. Pick us if you want to," and then walk away, rather than just walking up and saying, "Hey, this is our robot. This is exactly what we can do. We think we'd be a good fit. Please consider this." Right? It makes a big difference about confidence in your robot. It changes the opinion of the person you're talking to. It just overall makes the conversation easier. It makes it better to talk.
And emphasize your goals and strengths, like what I talked about earlier. When you're scouting, make sure you're scouting robot goals. This goes to selling yourself if you're going to be a little lower in the rankings. So let's say you're a defense bot, great, own it. Especially in last year's game, that was super important. Make sure you have examples ready where you really shine, because again, a lot of people depend on where that ranking number is next to your name, and they may just look over you. But if you come prepared and you say, "Hey, check out this match, we completely shut down the opposing alliance," or whatever, that is gonna take you so far. And being confident about yourself, and like Sean said, being positive about your robot, they're gonna actually remember you and take that into account, whether they might select you into a higher seeded alliance. Another example would be if you're a specialist. Let's say you do something very specific, like that robot I showed you earlier that only did the switch. Same sort of thing, sell it. Because depending on who's above you or who you're talking to, like a jack of all trades spot sort of thing, they may be too focused or too busy doing the main scoring element, where you picking up those specialized points just raises your chances of winning leaps and bounds, right? Because you're just adding to the total point potential. So being a specialist is also great, but it's not a negative. You're ready to sell it. And then what about being an average Joe? Let's say you can do everything, but you're not great at it. That means you're flexible, right? So that's great too. What if the main scoring robot on your team goes down? You can flex into that position and still keep the alliance going. It's also, especially I would say with average Joes, because that tends to be where a lot of people in the kind of the team ranking sections end up at PNW, where they can do a lot of everything, but they're not the best at it, is make sure that you emphasize your experience. So let's say you have a really experienced driver team. I would, if you're trying to sell, like, to compare yourself to another average Joe, when you're selling yourself to a big team, say, look, our drivers had this many hours of practice, we've never broken, things like that. Use those to emphasize, and then put yourself a little bit above this guy below you or above your points. Okay? And then, just to reiterate.
Please don't be afraid to talk to teams. Every single team you talk to is another high school student who's gone through the same things you are. There is literally no difference. If you're thinking of a team of prestige, think of the team in terms of they are another high school student. They want to talk to you about their robot. Please don't be afraid to talk.
Yeah, I think that is honestly the biggest thing that traps people going into alliance selection and just destroys their confidence is not being able to at least go out and talk to teams. Whether you're trying to sell yourself or not, just getting comfortable talking to other teams is going to boost your confidence so much, especially going to alliance selection. Okay, selling yourself in a picking position. Look where you're ranked in the top 8 to 10, again, because the top 8 can pick each other, you might move up. Looking at teams above and below you, who would you say yes or no to and why, and contingency plans. So let's go back to knowing your robot, what you're capable of, and then looking like what you're capable of, right? So what roles on our alliance do we need to fill besides the ones that we are capable of doing? That will kind of lead you to who you want to pick. Let's say I'm a scale bot, but I'm not great at the switch. You might want to pick a really strong switch bot that's also good at this, right? So know your robot roles and what you're missing from the alliance. That will help you kind of determine what roles you need to fill. And then who do you say yes or no to? This is more of a subjective thing. Oftentimes on our teams, it's we will ask the drivers, did you get along with that alliance member? Did you have any issues? We also have that focus on technical scouting. We'll go interview teams about how many batteries did they bring to competition? Do they have a plan in place in case their robot breaks? Those things that you don't want to come up in playoffs like, oh God, they broke and they don't know what to do, right? You want someone with experience. So some of those other things you take into account as to whether we might say no to a team above us that's ranked higher. Or we might say yes to, you got to kind of take those into account. Because if let's say your drive team doesn't get along with that rope or that other team's drive team and you're trying to go to playoffs and form a strategy that they're going to deliver on every match, but you're just breaking down and arguing every time, you might want to say no to them. So keep that in mind too. And then I'll let Sean go to contingency plans. Oh yeah.
I'll just interject. As a drive coach,
Yeah.
this is a very rare thing. This is not a common thing. And it's also very important in a lot of cases where we have to take some subjectivity out of it. There's some times where it'll be noted and factored in that there is a relationship issue or a conflict or something going on, but that typically is not a big factor in whether or not we pick it. Right? So you got to be careful about looking at the data versus your gut feeling. The question always is, could you actually work with this team? If you were the captain in this case, or if they picked you, could you actually carry it out and work with it?
You got to weigh it, right? That's why it's subjective. So, yeah. All right, back to your contingency plan.
So, for contingency plans, the biggest thing you got to remember is you want to try and visualize who's going to pick you. Now, to be fair, you can only get to a certain point in thinking who's going to pick who, but the best part about contingency plans is it doesn't matter who picks who, you're ready for all sorts of scenarios. So let's say you're the 8th ranked team. You should at least have 8 teams per round, because one could pick the number 1 on your list, 2 could pick the number 2. They could go right down. If you only have a list of 4, the top 4 pick the 4 you're looking for, you're stumbling out on the field and you have no idea who you picked. Contingency plans in there, contingency plans in your second pick. You should always be ready for the craziness that happens on the field. You should always be ready for someone to pick who you pick.
All right, making a list. Okay, so I have a few printouts. I'll have Willie hand them out. So our team over the years, it took a lot of discussion and debate, but every Friday night, you've all been there at a district event. You now need to come up with a list of teams you're going to pick whether you're top ranked or low ranked, you need a list in case you get called out on the field, who you want to select for alliance. And oh my God, it took us forever to get to this point. A lot of debate about just the steps we would take to go through that process. So what we're handing out is just a little agenda that we've made up for our team so that things are organized when we go into this meeting, and we make sure we don't miss any points. And then our next slide will actually be what you have in your hand, and we'll kind of go in detail with it. But again, I want to reiterate, ranks are always right. Please don't depend on them to make your pick list. And then use your data. Let's see here. Pre-scouting, again, great resource. Your observational data, whether that was for your paper scouting app, or using the shared resource of the Strategy Alliance. And then, of course, your team notes, feedback from your drivers or other teams that you played with. So, I will see the heads and strong stuff. Does most everyone have one yet? We might wait a little bit. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll let
go
you-
ahead.
Okay, so, going back to contingency planning,
Okay.
how deep is the list? So normally our list is 28 deep, basically goes to, say we're first pick, or even if we're not first pick, if we get picked by the first alliance, right? You want to be able to have data and a plan for if every one of your picks are picked, you go right up back to the first pick again for the second pick. You have no idea who you're going to pick. So just being ready for any scenario, like being on the field and actually, selecting in the chaos a lot easier.
Yeah, and it sucks having to go 28 deep. It's a long meeting, but do it.
So the number 28
This is for a district.
is,
Yes.
so worlds, because you have to go to the third pick, is a different number.
That's not
30.
So pick list rules. These are rules you establish at the start of the pick list.
It's mostly these would be your team rules, like how you keep the chaos under control for this meeting, because everyone's gonna have a different opinion. So we've kind of established pick list rules, like who's gonna be talking, who's gonna be presenting data, and then we also set aside time usually for feedback from people as we go through the thing. So it's just general rules, so that you guys can stay on time and then hopefully get some sleep that night, because usually the matches don't end until like 6. It means you gotta find some place to meet and have this long discussion and still get sleep before you gotta be at the event the next day. And usually eat a few matches or so.
So predicting your range of placements for us and other teams, having strategy and data on all the other teams lets you eventually look at matches and kind of predict which way it's going to swing. It lets you look at your matches and kind of see what the goal for ranking points are. You kind of average it out and see where you could fall in the rankings. There's only probably about 10 matches in the next day if there are any. And it helps you, figure out, so it's not so much of a surprise, hopefully, where you end up in the rankings. So once you're able to predict, you're able to kind of guess the highest position you could be in and the lowest position you could be in, so you're ready for those changes there. So alliance selection first and backup. Please, before you do alliance selection, select someone who generally knows what strategy you're going for, generally participated in some of the strategy, at least understands what your goal is on the field, what the goal of your strategy is on the field, and have a backup for that person in case they get sick or some other altercation makes it so they can't go out onto the field. Selecting at last minute for someone who's unprepared is a bad play for the strategy of the team and the hope of the team, because eventually there might be one contingency that they didn't account for. They have to be able to make that decision.
Yeah, I would say you want the person with the most strategy knowledge from your team down there, so that you can argue in favor of your team and your pick list that you spent so much time pulling this data for to come up with.
Possible strategies. So there's a lot of different possible strategies. You may have had one strategy you've been going for this entire event because it's worked in qualifications. That's what you're all about doing, and that was the best strategy for you. But some strategies you have to consider now are the hope to be able to pick your alliance partners depending on where you are, and the hope to be able to create a new strategy based off of these new conditions you can place them to. So such as potential versus risk, potential opponent strategy. So what strategies could the opponents make and how could you counter that? Discuss counter strategies and average versus max strategies. So what's the highest potential for your team? You're kind of looking to get the most out of what you've chosen. So you should go through all the possible strategies, to see what the highest potential is.
And I will add to that, that's also a big pitfall for a lot of teams. If you have a lot of confidence, great, but temper it, right? Because you wanna pick the best possible lights for your team. So don't go into this average versus max, assuming that you're always hitting your max scores, that your robot is competing at its best top level. Because at some point, you might break, and you need to keep that in mind too. So keep about your average, like usually what your average level of gameplay is, and use that more. I would say weight that a little bit more than your maybe your maximum potential for, let's say, it's a series of switches, or how many panels or how fast you can project.
So adjusting weights, it mentioned the list and bubble sorting. So for adjusting weights, this is what we do with our data. We adjust kind of the weights of how many they did in one area, such as the exchange from 2018, the switch with the scale, and kind of tailor it towards your strategy. That's something we do mainly because we collect a lot of data and we're able to manipulate it that way. But really just taking your data into account and making a hard list based on what data you have.
Okay. Do you want to go into why we weighted these the way we did based on what robot we had?
Our strategy in that year was to be able to have 2 robots on the scale and 1 on the switch/exchange. Because our robot was able to work on the scale mostly, it was nice to have another robot that would work on the scale. So we tried to weight our data more for our first pick to be able to work at the scale, and for our second pick to be able to work more at the switch or the exchange. For making a hard list, so now you've got your hard list of data. You don't always want to go just off of the hard data and the hard metrics. You want to kind of add a little bit more human element to it. You want to add more driver input, the player input, drive coach input, the different notes you have on the teams. Not just what their robot did, but what kind of, how prepared is their team, have they had any alterations or failures in the robot? Did something big change recently? And adding those notes to the robot to kind of shift their weights to more of the bubble sort, soft data. Now you kind of have merged hard and soft data, and hopefully it made a pretty decent healthy list. You need to add a graciously defined. So this is essentially the list where if you're 4th, would you say yes to number 1? Would you say yes to number 2? Would you say yes to number 3? So on and so forth. Making a list for that, being ready on the field just in case that happens, is a must in order to be ready for a scenario. Contacting your first pick. Please try and talk to your first pick. Ask them, if we were to pick you, would you say yes? Gathering more intel on what your strategy could be on the field. Kind of trying to figure out what the field position. This is another way. Also, contacting your first pick. If they say yes, you can start making plans with your first pick. Understanding and doing it before the alliance selection even starts. Only if you're confident that you'll get it. Final list review. It's always good to go one more time over, qualm any disputes over teams, and make sure everybody is confident and happy with the list. If one person sends a list up there and the entire team is not happy with the list, it's a problem. The team is in disarray, you don't have something to confident in, you're not feeling at your best when you got someone else. You always want to be 100% sure before you go into the field. What to look for the next day. This is if there are still matches, if you need to talk to some teams and ask them if they can do certain things, if you miss some data. This is what you're looking for the next day. This is what you have to have people looking for, people actively going out and talking to teams and asking for. The things that could potentially change what you're doing should be handled the next day. And please get some sleep. Yep. It's going to be a stressful day the next day, and being in the right state of mind is good.
Okay, so we had kind of delved into an example from the year. I believe this was from 2018. This is all the different bar graphs. I'll have Sean explain them, but this was our pick list essentially, and it's all weighted by these different metrics. And I'll explain that.
So in our app, what we were able to do is create a display full of data in the tablet that we had with us. So we would weight certain things. Like this last year, 2019, auto panel, auto cargo, teleop panel, teleop cargo. This was all weighted to essentially say, hey, we wanted someone who could do auto panel more than we wanted someone who could do regular auto cargo. Or hey, we wanted someone who had a better autonomous for panel, but we weighted everything exactly the same because we wanted to know how many game pieces could someone move, because that was our main focus on that. So this is just the way that we've sorted our data to make a hard list.
I believe this is all data pulled from, the teams we played with their opponents, isn't it?
This is like a,
Just
Lego.
Lego, okay. It's really tiny and formal. All right, I think we go on there. All right, now you have a list. Yay! Okay, assign someone to go to the field. Like we said before, it's really important that you pick someone that's confident in speaking about strategies, so you can have team points. And make sure you have a good method of communication with them. It's really funny when someone's in the stands holding a whiteboard with the team number on it for them to pick from, or they're shouting it, or something like that. Whether it be a phone, just call them, or have like a chat open with them or a text message. So if they're unsure, they have that backup line of communication. What we do is, Sean's usually our most confident person, so he's usually down the field, and I create a private chat with him between me and then because I'm the lead strategy mentor, and then whoever else that we want from the strategy team getting input. Let's say if there's a decision to be made, something came up, Alliance 1 picked Alliance 6 and it was unexpected, and then we can quickly like chat with each other and come to a decision on how to change our list if needed once the time comes for us to make our pick as we go down the road. So that's really important. Set up a line of communication, whatever it would be. If you don't have phones, mentors always have cell phones. I recommend handing them to your students and then just having a line of communication that way. That's usually the best and least awkward, so you don't get the Jeopardy music playing for you while you're waiting to make your decision. And then have a backup plan. Sean, do you want to talk about backup plan?
So real quick, I want to reiterate, being on the field is pretty scary. You know, being all alone on the field, if you don't have another line of communication, if you have to think for yourself, it's really scary and daunting.
Everybody watching.
Having the ability to talk to other people and verify your thoughts is 100% the best way to go about it. But having backup plans again, contingency plans, stuff happens on the field. The field is complete chaos when you get out there because whoever thought was going to pick someone, most of the time just doesn't really happen.
That's a good thing. Make sure that you select who is going to be called to the rest of the field. You really don't want to then people mess.
Yes, yes, I will preface that little chat I make. It's very limited. It's usually 3 people that's talking to Sean, so he doesn't get overwhelmed with like, pick blah blah blah, and everyone chimes into the chat and just overwhelms him. Because literally the weight of the team is on his shoulders, and I know how he must feel. Because, but I mean, essentially it is, right? If you pick someone wrong or you say the wrong number, that can be devastating. And you don't want to, you want to try and take that pressure off as much as you can by giving them some support. Okay. Okay. All right. So that is it, you guys. We're now going to open up the Q&A section. I'll have Keith and Bryce come up and join us, and then John, you want to be up here? Yeah, sure. If anyone has questions